On August 10, 1847, General Winfield Scott and his army marched out of the mountains to discover 3,000 feet below them the Valley of Mexico.
And near its center, the object of all our dreams and hopes, toils and dangers, once the gorgeous seat of the Montezumas. Probably not a man in the column failed to say to his neighbor or to himself, that splendid city shall soon be ours. Winfield Scott.
Not all of the soldiers were as confident as their commander. Even from a distance, they could see that Mexico City would not be easy to capture. The capital was surrounded by lakes and marshes. Only 6 causeways crossed the waters, each entering the city at a fortified gate. In Mexico City, church bells sent a frantic alarm echoing through the streets. The unthinkable had become a reality. The Yankee troops were approaching the capital. Since his return from Cerro Gordo, Santa Anna had worked feverishly to rebuild his army. Bells were forged into cannon and closets ransacked for old muskets. Thousands left their jobs to join the National Guard, the pride of the city.
My battalion was formed by bricklayers, tailors, carpenters, in a word, craftsmen. It was called the Independencia Battalion. Our weapons were poor because, being laborers, we were only able to buy old flintlocks. Private Perfecto Falcon.
Between new recruits and loyal veterans, Santa Anna managed to raise an army of more than 25,000 soldiers. Most of the troops were positioned at strategic points around the city. The rest would meet the Yankees east of the capital, at El Peñon, a prominent hill overlooking the National Road. Shouts and cheers filled the air as 7,000 National Guardsmen under Santa Anna's personal command marched toward El Peñon to defend their city and their nation.
Vivas to the army, to General Santana, and to the Republic rang out from all sides. The mother cries, watches, implores for her son's safety. And the prayers and the pleas are drowned out by the monotonous sound of the military bands. Guillermo Prieto.
On August 12th, the American advance guard reached a crossroads, 30 miles east of Mexico City. But to Santa Anna's surprise, Scott avoided El Peñon entirely, circling around the capital to the south.
It's a turning movement. It's a classic turning movement. He has turned Mexican defenders out of their position without firing a shot. And that is the genius of Scott in this war, his ability to do that.
Santa Anna quickly reformed his defenses, placing 20,000 soldiers in a 5-mile line between Scott and the city. To the U.S. general's east lay soggy marshland and lakes. To the west was a massive field of hardened lava, a no-man's land of sharp, jagged rock called the Pedregal. Santa Anna now had the U.S. Army's approach to the capital blocked. The strategy might have worked, but for the actions of one of Santa Anna's rivals. General Gabriel Valencia was ambitious and powerful, and he saw victory on the battlefield as his path to the presidency. Against orders, he advanced to a position near the village of Contreras. From there, he hoped to engage the U.S. Army and win glory for himself. Valencia thought his flank was protected by what everyone knew as the impassable terrain of the Pedregal. But on August 19th, the Mexican general was shocked when 3,500 U.S. troops appeared out of the volcanic wasteland. On Scott's orders, Robert E. Lee had found a way across. Valencia was now in danger of being cut off from the main body of the Mexican army. Desperately, he appealed for reinforcements. But Santa Anna refused. Valencia is an insubordinate sot, Santa Anna said. Let him spike his guns and retreat. That night, U.S. troops devised a bold plan, a surprise attack on Valencia's rear. Someone was needed to cross the Pedregal and return with more troops. Robert E. Lee volunteered. Working through the night, his way illuminated only by flashes of lightning and the dim light of a lamp, Lee picked his way across the treacherous field of lava and brought reinforcements back. Scott called it the greatest feat of physical and moral courage performed by anyone during the entire campaign. At daybreak on August 20th, U.S. troops launched their attack. The battle lasted only 17 minutes. 700 Mexican soldiers were killed. 813 more were taken prisoner. Among them, 4 generals.
What has occurred is the result of the stupidity committed by the disobedient Valencia and the inconceivable conduct of Santana when he stood by as a motionless spectator watching the ruination of his rival. It is not the first time, nor will it be the last, that the criminal desire of generals to surpass one another results in the loss of nations. Manuel Gómez Pedraza.
Valencia's retreat spread panic through the Mexican ranks. Soon the road to Mexico City was crowded with fleeing soldiers. Scott's troops gave chase.
The double quick was sounded, and the whole advanced at a run. We soon reached the road and turned in hot pursuit. Captain Kirby Smith.
The key to the Mexican army's safe retreat was the crossing at the Churubusco River. Santa Anna had ordered the bridge there held at all costs. From behind the fortified walls of a former monastery, Mexican guns raked the ground in front of the advancing U.S. troops.
Heads of columns were swept away like chaff, and companies cut in pieces. Lieutenant Holloway was cut down while talking with me, and I thought of the passage. One should be taken, and another left. Lieutenant John James Peck.
Colonel Juan Cano, the engineer who had advised Santa Anna at Cerro Gordo, was responsible for the fortification of the monastery. Cano and his soldiers now waited desperately for Santa Anna to send more ammunition. When it finally arrived, the bullets were the wrong caliber. It was said those brave men tried to load their rifles with stones. More than once, white flags fluttered at the monastery, only to be ripped down by soldiers from the San Patricio Battalion, American deserters who had crossed over to the Mexican side. Many of them were Irish. Most were Catholic. After nearly 3 hours of savage fighting, Scott's forces overwhelmed the monastery, taking the defenders at bayonet point. The day-long battle from Contreras to Churubusco left a trail of bodies on the ground that stretched for miles. The Americans suffered more than 1,000 casualties. Santa Anna lost 10,000 men, a third of his troops. 3,000 were taken prisoner, including 8 generals, 2 of them former presidents of Mexico. Once again, his army was broken and in retreat. Still, Santa Anna searched for a way to hold on to his command. That same evening, he sent envoys to Scott's headquarters to propose a truce. Scott agreed.
Willing to leave something to this republic of no immediate value to us, on which to rest her pride, I halted our victorious corps at the gates of the city.
The city of Mexico was open to Scott after Churubusco, and he stopped for political reasons, so as to give Santa Anna a chance to survive, so he could have somebody to deal with.
From a rooftop in the capital, Jose Fernando Ramirez had watched the fighting. Now, along with the rest of Mexico City, he waited to see what would happen next.
What frightens me is the future. I cannot even guess what will become of us. Tell my family that I'm safe and in good health. But my heart is broken.